So guys, it's Nick with Limitless Motorsports Garage.
Matt.
So today I want to talk about something because we've done the vlog lately, three parts with the Mustang, where we've taken the block down, we've examined everything, and so this is a big part of us teaching you and you trying to learn about yourself and your motor and everything. Even if you don't want to get as in depth as we've gotten, it's good to know things because I don't remember if I've ever told the story. So I took it down to a shop down in Chatsworth. I was recommended, highly recommended by a friend to go down there and to take it and let them see what was wrong with it. All they did was ran a compression test on it and said that the compression was low in cylinder 4. So lo and behold, I asked him what could I do. He said, simply put a new motor in. So what ended up happening was he said that it was going to be $2,300 just for the motor. But when you look up a 302 crate motor, it runs about $3,000. So probably 700 or so he's going to put into labor minimum plus some, so that way he can pad his own expenses and make a lot of money on it. So I think the biggest thing we need to talk about today is just this is something that it's not every mechanic does, but I mean there are mechanics out there that will screw you.
One of the biggest reasons why I think we're doing these videos is to not only show you guys like what we like to do here, but we're trying to give people the initiative and teach you that it's not as hard as you think it is. I mean, very little knowledge. We pulled this motor out and we tore it down and we found what was wrong with it. He took it to a shop. They told him that it was going to be $2,300 for a new motor. One of the main reasons why we wanted to show you guys that two simple people like can with basic knowledge,
Basic tools, and
and
about everything we had was rented or from Harbor Freight.
yeah, I mean we went in. I've got some tools he doesn't. He's got tools that I don't have, and I have a little bit more know-how. I've been doing this for many years, and he wanted to tear the Mustang down and see what was wrong with it. So I kind of helped them, bring it to life. We tore it out, we tore it down, and found what was wrong with it. Most people are skeptical and nervous about it. They're afraid they're going to mess something up, which that's understandable. That's a legitimate fear to have. That was what I thought the first time that I tore my first motor down. First motor that I helped tear down and rebuild was a Honda D16 Z6. Simple. I mean, it's not as hard as you think it is.
No, especially the older motors. And when you get into more modular stuff like the 4.6s on the Fords, they are a little more intricate. Like for example, on mine, it's basically one cam gear and a big sprocket that attaches to it, and that's it. That's one timing chain. Whereas on the 4.6s, it's a larger chain that wraps around both heads because it's a dual overhead cam. And they have two cams for the two valves or four cams for the four valves. So it is a little bit different. But a lot of it's still pretty much the same thing at the base level. And yes, you may have to take more sensors off, take more plugs off, take more wires and tubes out of the way, like when we were changing this camshaft position sensor on this truck. It wasn't that hard, but it's just they put it in such a place that you don't want to pay for it, so you're going to take it to a mechanic, and it's something that most things are pretty easy. Even breaking down a whole motor and replacing it. All we really need is a couple specialty tools, like for example, we need a ring compressor, we need a valve spring compressor, and that's the majority of like the specialty we need. Now the heads are going to be outsourced because it is a little bit more delicate. You can ruin a valve seat very, very easily. But otherwise, everything can be done with simple hand tools in your garage.
Just a little also insight to tell you how places make their money. So to change both cam sensors on a 4.0 liter, I won't say the company name, but you'll see the other video. A dealership will quote you about 2.5 hours of labor at $100 to $125 an hour to change both those sensors. That's not including parts, that's just labor. We changed both sensors out in about 25 minutes, and
That was with a lot of struggle.
that was mostly the struggle with on the passenger side sensor because of the limited space and the other accessories that are in the way. The driver's side, shit, reached back there, took the bolt out, changed that one out in like not even 5 minutes. But some of these jobs that you take to a dealership or any kind of shop for that matter, you will get overquoted on a lot of stuff. Like most of that has to do with you don't know what they're going to run into while they're getting to the actual part that needs to be fixed.
Stuff like broken bolts, or maybe they lose a bolt, or maybe there's something that they see
Something strips out, something
Right.
breaks, a connector's broken, or wires need to be resoldered. They always overestimate the time by a little bit to account for uh-ohs. Me working at a dealership, I see that quite a bit. Sometimes, you know, it's something, they come in for something simple like a general repair, and if it's a car from like up north, for example, hey, they're having to replace like half the exhaust or certain suspension components because they can't do the repair they need to do because of rust damage and unforeseen. You always got to account for unforeseen damage, even if it's something like any kind of minute repair like that. Now, obviously, you know, hey, I'm changing my air filter out. They're not going to charge you an hour to change out an air filter. That's just simple stuff.
And that's something you can do. And even
Yeah.
stuff like changing a blower motor out in your HVAC system can sometimes be very easy. There are a lot of videos out there. Search them, look them up. Hopefully they have a good video for you.
One thing I will say, anybody that wants to learn how to do this stuff, don't have a, well, that's too complex attitude, or I can't do that. Don't ever put a limit on yourself. Whenever I was a kid, I was like, you know, I never thought I would be where I'm at now working on cars. I've helped build turbo cars, race cars, customized, modified, general repairs. I mean, most of the stuff is trial and error. You'll never learn if you don't get your hands out there and you don't have the initiative to get out there and try and do it yourself.
Even if you get a cheap motor, a cheap car, get you something on the side. Don't work on your main car. But if you have to.
Don't daily your race car.
No. If you have to, find a little beater. What we're actually going to do, hopefully in a future video, is we're going to find a junk T5 transmission for the Mustang, and we're going to rebuild it ourselves using a little bit of tutorials and how-tos, and hopefully to show you as well that we can do something as complex as that. Because it is not if there is anything that's complex in these motors for these Mustangs or these transmissions or anything, it is going to be the transmissions. They are a bitch.
Something else too is, I mean, if you're a little intimidated by working on something that is a little bit more complex, say like the Mustang, if you're getting into cars, you're new to the scene, buy something cheap, something that the parts are plentiful for, and something that's cheap and easy to work on and modify. Most people are going to say I'm on the Honda bandwagon about that, but it's true. Like, you can find Honda parts around anywhere for dirt cheap. Like around here, D series stuff, people most of the time like to swap over to the K series or B series. They will practically give D series stuff away. D series can make a good power, make a lot of good power if you know how to build them right. If you were trying to get into cars and you wanted to learn and something that's basic and easy to rebuild and something that's cheap, find you a 90s model Honda. I dabbled a little bit in Honda stuff for a little while. I had a 95 and I had a 95 coupe and I had a 93 hatch. Dude, you can buy exhaust systems cheap for those things. Rebuilding a D16 Z6 single cam. You can tear down and completely rebuild a D16 Z6 within a few hours. Like, it's very, very simple. And another good thing about Hondas is if you blow a head gasket in them, as long as you don't like warp the head, just you can take the head over, have it machined, throw some ARP head studs on, throw a Felpro head gasket, Felpro, and put the head back on and keep running it. I know the motor that was in the Goblin, which was my coupe, blew 3 heads, 3 different heads on that motor, and all we kept doing is like we kept having the heads resurface and putting them back on. That motor ended up biting the dust in a boss way. It ended up spinning almost all the bearings in the bottom end. I have pictures of that we can tie in somewhere, or I'll put a link in there for that.
Mr. Bigglesworth.
That car tore down for a month, and that was my daily. I ended up getting a rebuilt D16 Z6 from a guy in Griffin, Georgia. He was real cool. That rebuilt Z6 was like $250. So, like I said, D-Series shit's cheap. But if you wanted to get into something where you can just learn, or if you wanted to modify, like, start out with something cheap.
Even if it's something kind of silly. I mean, I've looked at recently some of the modifications that maybe would have been done more so in the Fast and the Furious when it was originally released, like the floorboard lighting that people would do. And as much as I don't necessarily want to do that, it's like that's something you can learn on because those things are relatively cheap to buy and put into your car. And so you can learn stuff like how to get them to come on when you open the door or when you cut the headlights on. And so, yes, the Ford, the Mustang, it is going to be a little costly because we are doing kind of an extensive repair. We're doing basically a full rebuild. And we're also going to have to take it to a shop, so it is going to cost us minimum about $1,500 probably in parts. But as far as that goes, we're doing the rest of the labor except for the machining and maybe some of the balancing and stuff like that.
Yeah, the crane.
So we're saving a lot of money by being able to do this ourselves. Now, if we had taken this to a shop, and yes, maybe it would have been better to buy that motor and have it put in through the guy if we took everything to a shop. But because we want to do it ourselves, it's going to save us so much more money. Now, as I told him, we had just sold a 351 block when we started this journey. The thing is, if we had built it, it would have maybe made a little bit more power, but it would have probably cost us more, and on top of that, we've already got a good solid foundation.
Oh, well, funny thing about that, going back to the lighting, you know, where people used to put those underneath their dash. I know I went through that phase. I had blue like all in my car. Almost got a ticket for that once, but I got it thrown out. Oh, it wasn't in the windows. Most car manufacturers nowadays are going to that. They put some sort
Yes.
of LED lighting underneath the dash and in the doors. Whenever you open it up,
Mhm.
you can see where you're stepping or see
Yeah,
where you step out.
those are called puddle lights, and you can even, like in the Sable, that was my mother's car. We were actually going to think about putting those into the mirrors because that's how they were incorporated. And not to mention, they also have lighting strips, LED accents that they put into, like, say, around the speakers. My girlfriend's car is a Kia Soul, and I do believe that one, when the speakers hit, you can actually see them pulsate. So manufacturers are starting to bring some of those things back. Maybe not as gaudy,
Yeah.
but they are bringing them back and installing them into their cars.
I know, like on the new, some of the new Nissans, like the more extensive package, like the SL, SV, and SR packages, like the Murano, the Rogue, and the Maxima, and the Altima, even the big Armada, you can open the door and it has the stripping underneath the car, and it illuminates the ground, and it actually has one in the door too. So as you swing the door, it lights up the whole ground. Anybody that's wanting to get into customizing and modifying cars, if you're not sure how to do it, look up videos how to, or find somebody that you know knows about cars. Like I can't tell you how many people I've had come to me and like, hey man, can you help me install intake on my car, or can you help me with my exhaust on my car? Like, yeah, man, I don't mind. A lot of it has to do with the scene. Sometimes people, you know, they're afraid to start asking for help because most people don't want to help. Like, I'm one of those people. Like, hell yeah, man, I love working on cars. I'll help you work on your car all day long. There's still stuff that I don't know how to do, like coilovers. That's still something new to me. I was always a big firm believer in throw some performance struts, adjustable struts, and lowering springs in. Call it a day. And now everybody's like, well, I want to go coilovers. Like, I don't know shit about adjusting coilovers.
The good thing about the coilovers is, especially depending on the brand, they have them where you can actually adjust them on the car, depending on how low you go. So you have a wrench, you can just put them on there. And the only thing is like on mine, the way the design is, it's a spring and a strut separately, and it replaces the strut completely. You throw the spring out the window.
I know, like the G35 and the 350Zs, for example, they've got a bellow in the back that the spring rides in.
Yes.
And whenever you go over to coilovers, it completely eliminates that, and so you have just that bellow sitting there. And I can't remember the name of that company. They actually make a piece that like actually deletes that and has more camber adjustability.
So keep on top of your surfaces at the very least, even if you're not going to do the rest of it. A lot of them you can do at home. Now the brakes, you may not be able to bleed them yourselves because on newer cars you have to have specialty tools to be able to bleed them. On my girlfriend's car, you cannot bleed those properly without a tool. Now on the Mustang, you're supposed to have a tool. We did, and it worked just fine. So talking about shade tree mechanics, sometimes they can be good. You just have to me, you have to pick and choose what you're going to take to them. I would not necessarily take to them something very delicate, very intricate, like a computer sensor, because they may not have the proper tools or they may not understand it as well as like a newer car and a dealership or one of those actual big mechanics. But I am willing to take, so we had one day, we took the 5.0 SM95 over here. We took it over there to that particular shop. I'm not going to name them because, I mean, they did great work, but I feel like if something ever arises, I don't want them to feel called out. So we took that to them, and I think we heard some knocking in the engine bay or something, and we know it's not the motor because it's not, running with the RPM or anything. But we took it to him, and he said that we had a bad motor mount. So we got a new one, and when he went to install it, he said that the motor mount was so torqued. He said, I've never seen anything like this. And he had to take a hammer and beat the motor mount apart so he could get it out of there. So some things like that I would probably just pay them to do, especially because they were very reasonable on all their prices. There's a lot of things that like they'd done for me that were relatively inexpensive. But with their welding, now the guy's not there anymore. Their welding was not that great. So he didn't clean up after himself, and what you should do in that case is you're supposed to knock all the slag, I think it's called. You're supposed to knock all that off, which I think he did. But you're supposed to go over it and paint it immediately because it is bare metal. And he did not do that. And if you're a shop, you should at the very least take a little bit of spray paint, just go pss, pss, and spray over it.
Yep.
He didn't do that at all. I can't blame him. It's kind of my fault for not paying attention and looking at that. But sometimes they can do great work, brakes, some simple stuff like that. I'm not saying that the dealers are going to ring you on that. They probably won't, because they do bring you in there and they do have to recommend things to you. And again, some of these things, they do need to be done. They have to be done, or else you're going to be replacing maybe your entire brake system. Maybe you have to get new lines because they rusted through because you let water build up in them.
If we tell you that your battery is leaking,
Fix it.
please, for the love of God, let us replace it. Yes, I know sometimes it can be expensive. Please, either let us fix it or fix it yourself. Mostly because, and please, if you take it somewhere else other than us, make sure they put the right battery in it.
Yes.
We get a bunch of them up there because I can't legally say who supplies our batteries. I'll just say that they're shit batteries. That those batteries start leaking, they will eat a positive terminal up. And people, they just get so oblivious to the repair that they're just like, well, I don't want to fool with it. I don't want to fool with it. We had one come in here recently that for like the last 6 visits, this is like getting their oil changed every 3,000 miles. So you figure 3,000 miles times 6. Yeah. So over that course of time, we kept telling them, hey, you need to replace your positive terminal because it looks like it has AIDS. Well, they came in and said, well, my car's just really slow to start. Oh, well, that's because the positive terminal was so eat up with corrosion that it was about to eat the fusible link. Now, on a Nissan, when the fusible link fries, that's an expensive repair. Like that little fusible link, I can't remember, I think it's like 100, 185 bucks. It is not cheap at all. So please, when somebody's sitting there telling you that something is seriously wrong with your car, like even something as minute as an alignment can like cost you more money than you think, because that will wear out a set of tires in no time.
I've had that happen.
We had an Altima in the other day at 15,000 miles that had so much like outer camber wear, tread wear, that like the tires needed to be replaced at 15,000 miles because they went from 7s on the inside to like a 2 on the outside because the camber or the toe was so far out. And we kept telling them, like, hey, I know that sounds like a bit much at 10,000 miles that you need an alignment, but anything could happen, especially living in North Georgia, the tri-state area, how bad these roads are. hitting a deep pothole, railroad tracks the wrong way or something like that can knock your alignment out.
It takes one good bump. I mean, you may go over thousands of little bumps and never have a problem.
It's
But
that
one good
one
bump.
big bump. It's that one big bump that'll get you.
When we went off-roading, we were going on like super rocky terrain, and when we got on the highway, he was like, I think I'm going to have some death wobble on the way home. And we didn't have any on the way out. So I was expecting us to...
Well, now, like what we do, we've got an alignment checker up on our service drive.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost anything for it to be used.
Mm-hmm.
We check alignments for free.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if it needs one, we recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so the customer knows that they're not being ripped off. They get a printout showing them how far out their tow or camber is.
Yeah.
Just to say, like, oh, well, you guys are trying to sell me something I don't need it. No, like, you really need an alignment.
My toe is out.
My toe is
Something related to the battery thing, because even if it's not visibly leaking, they can emit acid. And in case in point, in some of the cases I've read about the Mustang, the guys would have these, especially in mine, the screw that went under the battery and into the tray and down into the frame was so rusted. We still have it somewhere.
That's around here somewhere.
It was so rusted that it started swelling on the shaft because it was threaded only on the bottom part of it, and it was like almost impossible to get out. We had to cut a big notch into it and use a screwdriver to tear it out.
Yeah, and I had to, like, apply pressure to the screw at an angle in order to back it out.
And so if you can imagine what it did to a screw under the battery, imagine to what it does to wires around the battery. That's why a lot of times I've heard of people taking, and they've had to replace the negative or the positive wires because of that, because it has ate through that last little bit, and it's not visible. It's something that it's a bare wire basically, and it's eat through everything.
Dude, like, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we had, like, by far one of the worst batteries I've ever seen in my life. This woman actually, like, brought her Altima in. It was a 2010, and it was saying that she had black fluid leaking underneath the car. It's like, okay, well, maybe it was a bad crush washer or something that was dripping on. We didn't check it out. I get it in there, and I pop the hood, and there is battery acid boiling out of the top of the battery. And what it was actually running. It was so bad it was running down the battery, and it ate a hole in the battery tray, and it was actually starting to corrode and eat the brackets, and it was running down like the car. So what I had to do is I had to use this like little claw, take the battery out, and actually put it in a box and get it like out of the building. And I actually had to take stuff that we do a battery service with, which cleans the terminals. I had to use like a whole container of that, clean up the surface, and then wipe it down, and then rinse it out with like a bucket of water. It was bad. Like, it was so bad it was eating everything that it was coming in contact with.
Right.
But that cap was swollen up, and it was just bubbling acid out of it. So on that note, just for safety precautions, if you notice your battery is leaking, don't go, ooh!
Fix it.
Don't touch it with your bare hands. Don't touch it with your bare hands.
Make it.
And definitely don't pour Coca-Cola on it. The old method, these are new cars. Don't do that. Don't do that.
So that's all from us. Hopefully you can get out there and get you something and take it to a shop, work on it yourself, whatever you want to do. Hopefully you get enough confidence and you can work on your own vehicle.
Let our rinky-dink videos inspire you to go buy a shit box. A 90s shit box.
Literally $500 or less.
Yeah, find you a shit box. Like something that the transmission is good in, motor's good in, and it doesn't have electrical problems, but it is
The motor's all right in it.
a fucking polished turd that you can just sink a little bit of money into and just have some fucking fun.
So get out there and have fun.
On this episode of Mighty Car Mods, ah!
Okay, for a second. God damn.
Damn, Cheech Marin. Is that the cigar or the car?
Puff, puff, pass.
That's the car. I don't know what
That's gonna
Still
do.
wants to burn off that oil that's in there, but that's a lot of damn oil.
Yeah.
Once I got turned around down there, and the engine it started burning, smoking like hell.
At least I ain't like that S10. That thing's about to pass a rod through the top of the block.
Just send it.
You want to make your pun first?
Okay, so big announcement on the channel is we're gonna start a boy band called New Kids on the Block.
And it's just little stuff like that here and there, and like being able to move up to like
Don't do it.
how do you want to end? 'Cause I feel like I'm tapped.
I feel like a tap.
I don't know what to say.
Oh shit, I don't know. I think I'm about tapped out mentally.
I don't even know what to say at the end. I just cut the damn video. So that's all for.
I'm gonna start singing Dawson's Creek in a minute. I don't wanna wait for my life to be over. If that ends up in the video, I'm gonna be a little ill.